first time we actually met each other would have been at the DTM Young Drivers Test at the end of 2018, if I'm right.
Yeah, correct. 2018. Yeah, right. That was actually, like you said, the first time we met. Remember, it was a super cool experience. Nick Katzberg was there as well. Mikkel Jensen. It was us four. And I don't know if you can remember, but like we only got half a day of testing back in the day, and that was, I mean, for me coming from a GT3 car, never having driven something with downforce or anything, it was a big shock to the system. So I think you obviously felt a lot more comfortable than I did. I was just driving as fast as I could. Back at the time, it was very uncontrolled. I remember my long runs yours were a lot better than mine. That's all I remember. My tire deg was massively high on the rear because I was just literally slamming the throttle on exits and not really taking care of the Hankook tire, which is not, as we know, the best tire in the world. So yeah, that was quite an eventful one. But those cars were amazing to drive. For me, I think the V8s were probably even a bit better than the new cars, the turbo engines, purely because of the sound. You know, I remember putting my earplugs in and just getting out of the car and your ears are still zinging just from the noise and those high RPMs that you're constantly at. So that was a really cool experience for me.
Yeah, I mean that week was really good, and to be honest with you, mate, you were very impressive, particularly on the short runs, like you say, for not having much experience with downforce. I can remember coming out the garage and seeing a lap time. I was like, he's properly sent that because I wasn't expecting, to be honest, I wasn't expecting it. So you definitely did a really good job on particularly one lap stuff. You were, clearly very, very impressive straight away, and that's why you got the gig. So yeah, fair play to you. It was good. And then with Nicky, obviously, he was really fast, particularly on the long runs, if I remember.
Yeah,
and Mika was fast as well. But I agree with you. I preferred the V8s to the turbos, having got the opportunity to drive both, because I did the end of 19 test for BMW as well, just to get laps on the new car that we were trying to get sorted for last year, which was the last year. So good times. And Jake, you were actually there in 2018, like Sheldon said as well, weren't you, in the Merc?
Yeah, I was the last person to drive the Merc. So yeah, I love DTM, to be fair. I did. I mean, I drove it twice before not in the same way, but in the Autosport Award we have here in the UK, the Young Driver Award. We drive a Formula 2 car, GT3 car, DTM car. But yeah, Merc had just left DTM, and I was already told before the test that it was just going to be a test. So it's like licensed to go out and send it, basically. So I know it was the last one. I know no one was driving after me, so it was like, well, I don't want to crash it, but no one's going to drive it again. So
I kind of can if I need to.
Yeah, exactly.
But you enjoyed that experience as well, then, did you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's like it's single seater with a roof, isn't it? Really. It's. I mean, obviously, Sheldon touched on earlier. You didn't drive one before that, but I mean, I've driven at that point in Formula 3 for 2 or 3 years, in GP3 and Formula 3. I mean, and it it was like sitting in apart from the fact you had a roof, it was like straight away at home. And they were so cool, to be honest. They were just so cool to even just sit in. To be honest, you sat so far back in the car, like the bonnet felt like it was about a mile away. And I don't know, I just loved it. I wish Merc had stayed around a longer time, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's all changed the landscape of everything now, hasn't it? But I completely agree with you. And actually, I mean, I found it quite difficult jumping back in 2018, and maybe didn't send it quite hard enough on my first laps in particular, because I come back up from driving a Carrera Cup car where you've got to be quite careful. And I didn't extract the most of it, particularly on my first few runs. So it shows how impressive, the thing was. So if we go on to, obviously, your first races, Sheldon, in DTM as a full-time, obviously, you get the big contract. It's amazing. It's what everyone's always wanted, to get a DTM contract. But actually, to be the bigger thing is to get a manufacturer backing, which you did with BMW, which is great. How did it feel sitting on the grid? I think it was Hockenheim, I presume, was the first race for you. Yeah. How was the whole experience? Did you have family there? How did the race weekend go?
Man, I remember the night before, on the Friday night, I think practice went pretty well on the first weekend. It was raining a lot. I remember that weekend, and man, the Hankook tire in the wet is just another level. Yeah, it's another level, and the car's got so much power, and obviously no TC or ABS, so you got to be so smooth on throttle. We had different throttle maps to try and sort the problem out, And at the time, it was so risky. Aquaplaning down the Parabolica Strait. Pretty much everything was happening. So it was a wild first experience of my first race weekend. I think the first race was wet. Yeah, the first race was wet. And yeah, I was obviously super nervous. Didn't really know what to expect. You're driving around a bunch of guys like Bruno Spengler, Marco Wittmann, Timo Glock, the guys that you looked up to for your whole life pretty much. And now they're your teammates. You've got to beat them. They've got the same car as you. As you guys know, it's always a goal to kind of beat your teammates. They're the only guys with the same car as you, and these guys are so good, man. They got so much experience. I think where they really made a difference was just in the races. Like I remember Bruno was a very, very good racer as well. We were always in the pack together, and you could just see that he had so much experience. So I definitely learned a lot from them. Like I said, first races in the wet, finished P6, I think, which was a massive confidence booster for myself as well, just knowing that I can do it. And yeah, I didn't have a lot of experience before that. I did, like I said, I did TT Cup, TCR in 2017 after TT Cup, and GT Masters, and then DTM. So I had 3 years in Europe and not the biggest championships starting with. So yeah, it was a big shock to the system, but I'm definitely thankful to BMW for taking that chance on me. So yeah, I can definitely say there was a lot of mistakes in the first year, just because you don't really know what to expect, and the car's big, it's overwhelming. Had a couple of coming togethers with Timo that year, purely my own fault, just kind of wanting too much from the car and from myself mainly. But just learn from that really, and really put it all together last year, I think.
Do you think that like the fact that your progression was so quick, it kind of helped you in a way? Because like I think we see sometimes drivers and riders, they get put in at the deep end and they kind of go, oh, actually, I'm all right here, and
Sink or swim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it did in a way. Again, it's like growing up in Europe from a young age. It really throws you in the deep end, and you're willing to do anything to kind of keep up with it because you don't want to lose that opportunity. But at the same time, it's again like the young driver test. I just wanted too much from the car, especially in the long run. So I was high on deg, just pushed the car too much. The tire couldn't handle it really. And these are things that you can only learn over time, by driving the car more. And we didn't have a lot of testing as well. I think we only had one ITR test before the season. So it was very limited on testing. And that made things hard as well. So it was definitely good being thrown in the deep end, but with it came mistakes, that's for sure. I think it was not really, it's never expected, but you kind of accept it as well as a rookie, because you know that you have a lot to learn, obviously.
I think everyone, especially myself, like loves about DTM is the level of competition involved. I mean, the sort of recent format of having a race on Saturday and a race on Sunday, you could see the guy win the race on Saturday and then be, P17 or whatever on the Sunday, and you're like, well, how is that possible? The same track, he's just won yesterday, stuck it on pole. Yeah. And it's just the level of competition. It's like you've got to be on it every single session.
Yeah, the competition is super strong. It's very hard, like you said, from one day to the next, you'll have a perfect setup. The car will be working really well. You'll be really happy with it. Change nothing on the car. Get to Sunday's race, get in qualifying, and you're literally at the back. And you don't know why. You've changed nothing on the car. The balance is completely different. And you're kind of, DTM is very important with qualifying. You need to qualify up front. Otherwise, you really get stuck in that kind of aero wash in the pack, and you cannot really do anything. You've got DRS, obviously, but it always comes back to you at the end if you boost it all in the beginning. So yeah, track position is very important. And like I said, it's very, very different from day to day. Sometimes you're quick, sometimes you're not, and you don't really know why. And in a sense, that kind of annoyed me about DTM, because sometimes I felt like I was driving better than the day before, but the result was not there at all. So that really boggled my mind sometimes.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's all, like you say, it's also marginal. It's more like F1. And off the back of that, I know who you work with as an engineer, because I actually worked with him when he was a Force India All Racing Point at the time, Robert Suttler. Did he help you through that quite a lot? Because obviously he has a huge amount of experiences and he's a super good engineer. How was your relationship, number one, with him? And how was it dealing? Obviously, you come from GT Masters where you have one engineer, a couple of mechanics. Now you have a team of engineers behind you at BMW. probably 20, 30 in the trucks listening to every word. You've got tire engineers, engine engineers, chassis engineers. How was it for you to be able to expand how you sort of talk to them and really get everything that you wanted across?
Yeah, that was a very cool experience. Obviously, like you said, again, overwhelming, coming from one engineer masters to 3 just on your car, and then you got your mechanics and stuff. And that's also another aspect of DTM. Whereas, everyone's working for you only on one car. And I always try to adapt the kind of mindset that you need to really have a good relationship with your boys. And I think in the last 2 years, I had some tough times in the first year, like I said, where I really needed someone to build me up a lot. And Rob was actually always by my side. He really pushed me. The thing is, he came from Gary Paffett. He did Gary Paffett in 2018. So they actually won the championship at DTM. So his expectations of me was obviously very high. And obviously I wanted a lot. So I think in the beginning, we were really pushing, to get a race win and whatever. But then we realized, okay, we need to maybe just take a step back, let everything kind of fall in place. And he was very good at that. He was very good at motivating me. I mean, Nick, the guy as well. He's a very cool guy to work with. And I think if it wasn't for him, I would have struggled a lot more in DTM. He really guided me a lot, sat with me in the evenings, went through data and stuff. And he was actually one of the biggest reasons probably that I've really come to grips with the car last year, and had some very good results. So yeah, I can only thank him a lot for that. And I think he had a big role to play in kind of helping me get used to the vibes in DTM.
How is he in Formula E now, by any chance?
He is.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah,
he
because
is. He's with
because
Blomqvist.
yeah, that's it. Because I was in Saudi walking into the track, and I was with Gary, and he stopped speaking to this guy, and I waited for him. He came back. He said, "Oh yeah, he was my engineer in DTM."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's with Tom Blomqvist now at Neo. So yeah, that's kind of cool for him as well, just to get experience of kind of everything in motorsport.
It's super small world, isn't it? You always meet these people at some point again. And I mean, I mentioned him in particular because I knew how hard he worked in terms of he'd just sit there all night if he had to and pick through every little thing and then relay it back to a driver if needs be. And I'm sure that was really beneficial, particularly in DTM when everything is so marginal in terms of, if you're 0.1 of toe out or bar difference in tire pressures, you can then be, instead of putting on pole, you can be 12th. So having someone like him in your first year, although he's teaching you because of the lack of experience, it's great to have someone that's already been there and done it with a champion like Gary Paffett, for you just to, sponge off.
Yeah, exactly. I was very lucky that he had a lot of experience as well from Mercedes, so he could bring a lot of knowledge from there into BMW. I think that was also an important reason for BMW to sign him with RBM, is that he could kind of bring all those tricks from the winning manufacturer from the year before. And yeah, I really gained a lot of value from that. Like I said, we had a lot of contact throughout the year. I'm not always the guy to really get into a proper relationship with the engineer as like friends or whatever, but I think this time it was really different. Like we really spoke on a daily basis, and not just about racing all the time. Most of the time it was probably about frigging girls, or I don't know even what it was. But it was just was a very open-minded relationship that I had with him, and I think that was also important to kind of grow together in a sense.
No, completely.
So how obviously now with DTM changing over, it's like a new era for DTM. Obviously, we've taken on the GT3 regs. I mean, I'm not going to ask what you're doing in terms of your racing, but what's kind of your opinion on it? Like, obviously, I think we all would have liked to keep the DTM cars, the current generation, 2019, 2020 generation cars. But such is the world. So what's your kind of take on it?
I mean, obviously coming from the Class 1 car, those cars are amazing. It's probably the best car I'll ever drive in my career. So definitely at the beginning when you hear that DTM is going to go to GT3 cars, you definitely feel like shit, it's all over now and you don't really have that opportunity to get back in the car again. But at the same time, dude, I think it's a new beginning for DTM. I think the racing is going to be a lot better for sure. Because you've got more manufacturers involved now. I think everything's going to be a lot closer because let's be honest, last year it was a bit of a one-man show up front with Audi kind of dominating a lot of the races. So I think it's going to bring the racing on a higher level now. I think the fans want to see a lot of good drivers. I've already seen in the media now that a lot of good drivers are being confirmed for that. So I think it's really the drivers that are going to bring the fans back to DTM and not really the cars. So I think you're just going to kind of accept that it's GT3 cars now, which are still very cool cars to drive. Don't get me wrong, but I just think that it'll obviously never be like the Class 1 cars used to be. And I think the Class 1 cars were actually probably the closest to F1 in my opinion, in terms of the level and the teams, the way they operated and stuff like that. So,
well, I mean, I think it's the same regs in Japan, isn't it, with Super GT?
yeah,
I
think
GT 500.
very close. Yeah,
Very close. Yeah.
I mean, I saw a stat somewhere last year where in Fuji, I think the GT 500 car was quicker. The Toyota GT 500 car was quicker than the LMP1 Toyota in Fuji.
Yeah. When they were BOP'd, yeah, it's true. And also, obviously, the Super GT cars run on some mad Bridgestones that are like super soft, so cornering speeds are unbelievable. But Super GT, is that something, Sheldon, that you would, obviously off the back of DTM and the DTM going to GT3s, obviously we know BMW aren't going to go and do Super GT, but is that something that took your fancy maybe to do a dual program at some point, or is it just too difficult to try and work both over there and over here?
It was definitely something that I considered at the end of last year, because I wanted to, obviously, like you said, the cars are amazing. So I wanted to naturally continue driving these kind of cars with high downforce in a touring car style platform. So that was definitely something I was looking at. But in the end, my only fear was that if I do go there, that you kind of get lost off the radar in a sense, where if you do go to Japan, people really in Europe forget about you in a sense. So that was probably my biggest fear of going there. And I think it's still a mega championship. I was speaking to Sasha Fenestraz in Riyadh as well, and he's doing that full time now, and he said it's an awesome championship to be in. I think the manufacturers invest a lot of money in there as well, especially from the Japanese market. So it's definitely a cool thing that I would still like to do in the future. I just think that now it's important for us as young racing drivers to be current and to really be in Europe, you know, to kind of keep your name relevant, like I said.
Yeah, I think if you're ultra successful out there, it can work for you. Probably if you look at like someone like Nick Cassidy, obviously now got a full-time driving Formula E off the back of it, but you know there's not many like him.
Exactly. I think if you're already established, like Andre Lotterer or James Rossiter, who they were also over there at the time, they were already established. So for them, it was just a good experience and kind of building on their CV. But I think as a young driver, you really try and build your CV in Europe, and then if the chance does come, you move over there, I think.
Yeah, but it's a shame because like they have two of the best driving car championships out there, you know, with GT 500 and Super Formula. I mean, Super Formula really should be Formula 2, the car.
I think the car is very similar. Yeah,
it's just, but they do look so cool to drive. And speaking with Nick, he says it's the same as well. That would be, you know, something he would miss after leaving Japan, definitely.
Yeah, and he's actually doing DTM. So if we go back to that, obviously, Sheldon, you had your pole, you had your first win, which was Assen in the wet.
Yeah,
if I remember. How was the feeling of that? Obviously, a big release of pressure off your shoulders because you've done the business. You've won the first race for a South African to win in DTM as well. I think we spoke off camera a little bit. It wasn't the youngest ever winner. You just missed out on that one, but still mighty impressive. How was that whole weekend's experience, and did the pressure really come off your shoulders after you got that win?
Yeah, it was actually the weekend started off really badly. So it was actually my worst weekend up until that stage. On Friday, we struggled all weekend. It was the same in 2019. For some reason, I was just not quick there. I don't know why. We struggled. I was like second last, third last, you know, really just struggling to get into the top 15. It was dry on Friday. It was dry on Saturday. And then Sunday, I think the qualifying was dry, if I remember correctly, but obviously didn't get right in the dry, so qualified right at the back, P14, I think it was. And before the race, I was not even nervous or anything because I knew that we could only kind of move up from there. It was not like I was starting up front, and you know, obviously, naturally, if you start up front, you have a lot more to lose. So I was super chilled on the grid. I didn't really have any expectations, just wanted to kind of get through it. It was a bad weekend up until then. Didn't really score a lot of points in the first race. So I just wanted to get through the weekend, and then all of a sudden the race started. I got an okay start. I think I maintained my position, didn't really move up anything. And then from there onwards, the car just got better and better and better, and it started to dry up slowly. There was no more rain, and all of a sudden, I found myself just moving forwards. You know, the car was mega good. I had so much traction. I could just really overtake people without sitting behind them for too long. You know, when you just feel good on the day and the car just works, everything kind of fell into place. And all of a sudden it got drier. Rob came on the radio because it was yellow flag, so you're allowed to talk on the radio. For viewers that don't know, in DTM we're not allowed radio communication to the driver unless it's yellow flag or it's red flag. So regarding safety, and yeah, it was yellow flags. Rob said we're actually in contention for the lead now, because at that time I think the first three had boxed, including Robin, who was leading at the time. And he said to me, we're in contention for the lead. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't even reply to that because I was so lost in the situation that I didn't even know what he was talking about. So I just kept on driving. And yeah, eventually I saw Robin coming out on the pit exit, and I literally went around the outside of him. He had cold tires, so he had no chance against me, who was already on hot tires for like 3 or 4 laps. So when I saw that overtake happen, I was like, shit, guys, we're actually in the lead, you know? And yeah, from there onwards, it was very tricky again, because I think it was safety car. It was a massive shunt by the WRT because it started raining heavily again. And I was worried because we had old tires at the time, and Robin had boxed like 3 or 4 laps later. So I thought with fresher tires, he would catch up in the wet, which wasn't the case. Still, our car was very strong, managed to even manage the tire while setting some good lap times. And the safety car came out, and that was when my heart stopped. I was like, shit, you know, like all that hard work that I've put in now of managing the tire and everything is gone. The guys are going to close up to me, have hot tires, and have an advantage on the tire. So yeah, that's when Rob came on the radio to me and said, just stay calm. We've got this. The pace is very good. It was red flag. We had the restart. I remember I was so freaking nervous on the grid, man. I didn't even know where to look or to talk to anyone or anything. And yeah, the race restarted. It went very well. Got a good restart and pretty much just managed it to the end there. So it was kind of weird, like I said, because the weekend started off so badly and I was really off the pace. And in the wet, the car just seemed to have worked. I don't know if the platform was just too soft or something, and that's the reason it was so bad in the dry and so good in the wet. But yeah, it was just an amazing day for me. Obviously, thinking back at it now, still getting a lot of goosebumps just thinking that I'm a DTM race winner. That's obviously was my dream for a long time, and just to achieve that now is very cool.
Makes all moving from South Africa all those years ago worth it all of a sudden, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That was we took a big risk coming from South Africa, obviously with DTM in mind all the time, and like you said, moments like those, you really realize it was all worth it in the end. And very happy that it did work out the way it did, because I'm sure it could have gone the other way as well, and I could have been stuck back in South Africa again. So very grateful for that.
It all happens for a reason, doesn't it? Were your parents there, or were they just tuned in from South Africa?
No, they were actually watching on TV. I called them straight after on FaceTime, and my mom was in tears, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all very emotional, but they've supported me along the way, myself and my brother. And like I said, it's not easy to support 2 brothers, especially from a budget point of view in the beginning of the year or at the beginning of our careers. So yeah, big respect to them as well for doing that.
Yeah, it seems like they've done a good job. So yeah, congrats to them as well. Pretty awesome.